I believe the world needs a new set of real models, people who live with deep intentions behind their actions. And this is the podcast where you get to meet them, hear from them, and hear me ask them questions about life, the universe, their new work, and everything in between. Today, I'm super excited to have with me Mike Posner, an American Grammy-nominated singer, songwriter, poet, producer, and podcaster. Mike, it's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, man.
Thanks for being here, man. I'm really grateful. I want you to know that I really am grateful that we connected recently, and I really appreciate you being here, man.
You got it. I'm grateful we connected also.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen your videos before, so I'm like, there's the guy, man.
I was listening to your music for a long time before too, so when we got connected.
That's cool, man. That's cool.
And it was nice because I remember Tom, who connected us, he was like, you both have 3 billion views, so you should connect. And I was just like, I think there's a lot of other reasons we should connect too. But yeah, man, I wanted to start off by just saying, been a long time fan of your work and your music. So the fact that you let me listen to your album before this, I really appreciated. And so thank you so much for doing that. But I want to start off by, we were on a call, I think about 2-3 weeks ago, and you were in a bookstore. Which books did you end up buying? Are any of them any good?
I ended up buying A Gentleman in Moscow.
Okay.
I just finished that.
Yeah.
It was really good.
Okay, what was that about?
It's a novel about, it's fiction, about a guy in the USSR in like the 20s and 30s. And he basically is sentenced to live the rest of his life in this one hotel. And it's a nice hotel, but he's not allowed to leave it ever again. Wow. And he gets into all these different things and nooks, and story takes turns and people come and leave, and it was really fun. It was a really good book. And then I bought The Stranger by Camus that I started yesterday because I just finished The Gentleman in Moscow, and I haven't been I'm not all the way in yet. Okay. But we'll see.
Okay.
And so I just started that, and then I bought Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys. He has a autobiography. I bought that. And then I think I bought some. That's all I bought. I bought 3. Okay.
You read a lot?
Yeah, I have been this year. This is probably the most I've ever read. Maybe read like 20 books this year.
Wow.
It's like the most for me. But yeah, I've been reading a lot.
That's a lot in a year.
Yeah.
What's been the best one? What's been the highlight, standout one?
Honestly, I read that The Power Now by Eckhart Tolle. Which was a book I avoided for a long time because it's popular, everyone talk about Oprah, Eckhart, The Power of Now. And I thought, if it's popular, it's not cool. That's why, foolishly, I always wanted to be find some
underground
secret. Exactly. So I never read it for years and years and years. And then I finally read it. I was like, oh, it's popular for a reason. It's good, man. I read that book 4 or 5 times this year. Yeah.
And we were just looking through my shelf and you said you'd read the Bhagavad Gita.
Yes.
When did you read that? What did you think of it?
I read that actually when I was visiting India for the first time. The only time so far. That was a year and a half ago. I remember just getting high reading that book. Was like a physical experience reading it. It was really something else.
Amazing, man.
What was the first time you read it?
The first time I read it, I was 16 years old. So I read it that time, and at that time it was very philosophical for me. Really powerful for getting through some things I got through at 16. Then I read it again at 18. Then I read it again at 21. And then when I became a monk, I studied and taught that book for 3 years full time. So it became a huge part of my life. And even now when I'm working on writing my own book, I'm taking a lot of principles from the Bhagavad Gita and making them relevant and accessible. Actually, The Power of Now has so many roots in chapter 14 of the Bhagavad Gita.
What's chapter 14?
Chapter 14 is all about the modes of material nature. A mode that makes you focus on the past, a mode that makes you focus on the future, and a mode that brings you in the present. And so chapter 14 of the Bhagavad Gita really goes deeply into the different modes that we operate in.
I mean, we do 2 hours just on the Gita, man. You tell me stuff like that.
We could. But that's what we're going to save for our time.
Yeah. Did you ever have this experience? I remember being, what city I was going to, but I was in India on a plane. I was reading it. I remember just feeling like the veil had been lifted, like all this weight came off, and I just like goofy smile on my. I felt like I took drugs just from this book, man. Did you ever have something like that?
Yeah, for sure. That spiritual knowledge can be intoxicating in a good way. In a good way, it's almost like detoxifying. But in the process of that, it feels like you get intoxicated first, and then it's stripped away.
Right.
But yeah, spiritual knowledge does. Spiritual knowledge is described to feeling like a consciousness shower, like bathing the consciousness, cleansing and healing and letting go of all of the other things, all the toxins, all the negative beliefs, all of the things that we've been holding on to for so long. All the false identities are stripped away. We almost get to see ourselves face to face after such a long time when we strip away and let go of all our false designations and roles that we've been playing.
Mm. And what do you do, like...
Wait, whose podcast is this?
I know. I just got a question for you, though.
Oh, my.
It's like, I don't know if it's like this for you, but for me, I will have that was one of them on the plane. I'll have these like flashes of very high moments. High is like the best way I can explain it, where it feels like, I've heard the word satori. Do you know this word? It's like a flash of enlightenment.
Yeah.
And what do you do with that after? Am I supposed to always feel like that? Because it's almost like it ends.
Yeah.
Right? It's like I had that moment on the plane, but at some point that moment ended.
Yeah.
And I went back to a more normal or default state. And then you kind of like the default state less because you experience this other thing.
That's beautifully explained, man. Yeah, it's true. It's true. So what it's explained as in the Vedic literatures is Shado Experiences. So a good example is when you're touring, let's say I came with you, I would get to experience everything like I was Mike. I'd get to be in your VIP space. If you took me as a friend, I'd get to be in your zone. I'd get to see things from your perspective. But I'm not Mike. I'm just experiencing the shadow of experiencing it through you. And in spiritual traditions, whether we're with an incredible teacher or a guru or we're with a book, that energy kind of is infectious and spills over onto us and we get that high. And then what we need to do is unpack it so that we can live that high continuously every single day. And what often happens with epiphanies or these moments is that we don't unpack them. We just let them be one-off experiences. But you can feel like that every single day if we choose to unpack and learn through that process of almost reverse engineering. Like, what was that moment trying to teach me? What did I really gain from it? Like, why did that happen at that state? What was I doing right? And then you can feel that way again. But it's also there to give us...
This is scary, though.
Go on.
This is the reason it's scary, is because if you're right, this is what you should spend your life doing. But if you're wrong, if you can't feel that every day, if that's not possible, this is a good way to waste your life. And not only that, you could very easily slip into hating normalcy because you've experienced this flash and you think something's wrong with not being there all the time. And I struggle with this because I go, oh yeah, well, let me unpack it. Let me do this work to get there, and I can feel like that every day. But then part of me is like, what if you can't really feel like that? What if this is what it's supposed to be like now? You know, or just make peace with this. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's both. I think it is both. I think having that flash, the fact that you've had that experience, is proof to you that there is more.
Yes.
It's proof to you that there is a greater purpose beyond our existence. There is greater meaning. There is greater fulfillment. And right now, you're totally right. Our current state is this. So if we don't make peace with this, if we don't accept this, if we don't learn to navigate this and constantly live in the chasing mindset, then yeah, we're gonna feel depressed every single day. So that's what I was just saying earlier, that the process and the destination are the same. It shouldn't be seen as separate. We see the epiphany as the destination or a milestone, when actually the process on a daily basis itself can be rewarding, you know? Yeah. It's like the creation of the song, and the song, you can't really strip them away from each other, right?
Correct. We went right for it, huh?
Yeah.
We're like 5 minutes in.
I know. I love it. It's great. It's great, man. This is what makes this
hit the ground running
so beautiful. Yeah, I love it. You start interviewing me though. You're the one with all the insights to share.
This is a because I struggle with this.
Yes.
This up and down, you know. And you know, I'll go on retreat or something, or spend some time. Like this summer, I spent some time in solitude at the monastery for like 12 days, and it go really high. And you come back in life, and I get tripped up, you know, I'll fight with my sister or something, you know, and it's like part of you wants to go back to the monastery where you can like control everything, but this is in life, you know, always.
And that's the beauty of it.
Dealing with the.
And that's the beauty of it, that when you come back into reality, you get an opportunity to learn how to navigate it, taking that information, taking that insight, taking those experiences from the monastery, wherever you're taking them from, and then getting them to play out in life. That's part of the experience. I know that when I left being a monk, I actually feel I've had more reflections and realizations since leaving, because I've had to put into practice everything I learned, than when I was a monk. Because when I was a monk, it was protected. It was
harder after, I presume, right?
It was harder initially. Yes, it was harder. But then it became more fulfilling, because I really had to dig deep. I really had to rethink. And I had to approach everything with a new, fresh set of eyes and experiences. So it's actually become more meaningful.
Yeah, I'm not there.
No, neither am I. It's a daily process. Yeah. I'm not there either, man.
This is like, so I was on, I tell you, I was on this retreat, spent like 12 days alone. I was like all the way alone. I was in this little cabin on this monastery. You know, they drop the food off once a week in like a box, you know, and you pick, so you don't see anyone for a whole week. You know, I'm like meditating 5 to 7 hours a day. And after like a week or so, I'll get to this point where my mind got quieter, you know, where, you know, usually I look at a flower and my brain goes, so this is a rose. This is the last time I saw a rose. This one isn't quite as pretty, talking. And a few times on this retreat, I got to a point where I would hear a bird song with like a quiet mind. And it's just like cripplingly beautiful. Like I would start crying, you know, or see the moon without my mind saying anything. And like, you just can't even explain how beautiful it is. So then it's like, okay, I want to go home and like do that with people too. It's like, listen, but I can't do it. And like, when I talk with someone, my brain is going all the time. So it's like, it's like this integration.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's natural, because that space is carrying that energy, because people for decades, I don't know about the particular monastery you went to, but people for decades have been practicing higher levels of consciousness, alternate levels of consciousness in that space. So that's carried. I always say that location has energy and time has memory. So that location has energy and time has memory. So that location is carrying that energy. And the time that you spent there is carrying that memory with you. So now what it's about is being able to recreate that outside of that physical space. Because if it is an altered state of consciousness, you can carry it with you and create that state in a new space, because it's not bound by physical boundaries.
Correct.
So it takes time, and I'm practicing it daily too. Like don't get me wrong, I'm not coming at it as a point of being an expert at all. I'm coming from always trying to create the state I want to be in, not accepting the state that is given to me.
Yeah.
It's
a real gift if you can listen to someone that way with a quiet mind. Because usually when we're listening, we're actually talking in our head about what the other person is saying, and we're listening to our voice, that commentary, as opposed to their voice. So when you can really listen in that deep way, it's a real gift to give to someone else. It's difficult to do. That's why it's such a gift, is because it's rare, you know.
Yeah.
I did it once, with my mom. I was like meditating and she walked in and I was like, and it felt so good. Because I could recognize the things that like usually would trip me up and I would get upset or judge her about. And was just really listening to what she was trying to say behind the words even, you know. It was like this beautiful moment, you know.
Did she feel different as well?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's so hard to tell. I've had both these experiences where I've like been in one of these like flashes. There was once in Hawaii. I was with a friend of mine and it was one of those moments, you know, we weren't even talking, we were just looking out over like this cliff is beautiful. And I remember I went like this and we gave each other a hug. And then later the day he was like, man, something crazy happened when we hugged right there. Like I felt this, he felt something. And I thought, oh, when I feel something, maybe other people are too. And another time I was with my girlfriend at the time. And I had just meditated one day and I'm like feeling like high. I'm like loopy, you know, riding in the car and I was very quiet because I was like having this experience internally. And then later I talked to her about it like 2 days later. She was like, yeah, I thought you were really mad at me. And I was like, she was in a different place. She wasn't high with me. So I never know exactly what other people are feeling. I used to think I could. I used to think, oh, they're feeling what I'm feeling always. But I don't think so. Not all the time.
It's harder, yeah.
Yeah.
It is hard. It is hard. And I think that's the challenge that we have, that when we've had a moment, an experience, our mind forces us to want to relive that experience rather than have a powerful new one. And the pain actually comes from always going to go back to where we were.
It's an attachment.
Than move forward to where we can, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually where the pain comes from. The pain comes from wanting to have the same experience, not believing that there is one that can supersede that again in the future.
And also, it's impossible to have an experience twice.
Totally, 100%.
Just, you can't even do it.
Yeah. And it's just the trick of the mind.
Yeah, my mind's always doing that.
It's just the trick of the mind that's constantly trying to, whatever it is, not just spiritual experiences, any experience. Even if it's a material experience, your mind's tricking you to want to recreate it again and again and again. So we keep coming up with new ways of having the same experience.
So here's a good question for you. I'm sorry, I'm just so curious. I know you're supposed to be asking me questions.
I've got so many good questions. Anyway, go on. This is fun.
This seems to me to be like two kinds of teachers nowadays. When I think of like contemporary spiritual teachers, there's one school that says you can train your mind to think better thoughts, think more positively, get rid of like negative stories or limiting beliefs, etc. You can journal and meditate and do these things and cleanse the mind, make the mind more healthy. That's school one. And then there's another school, I feel like, that says, nope, the mind is inherently dirty. And what you need to do is recognize that you're not your mind. And maybe it's both of those things, I don't know, together, but they seem to, I have trouble because I feel like I have a toe here and a toe there. You know what I mean? It's tough because one day I'll be like, I'll notice myself thinking negative thoughts and I think, oh, I need to stop doing that. Or do I just need to recognize that's what minds do? Yeah. I don't know.
No, that's great. I think that's an awesome question, man. I'm so glad. This is a brilliant question. So I look at it from the point of the Vedas or the Bhagavad Gita and that tradition, that school of thought, because that school of thought has given me, in my research of Stoicism and my research of all alternative ways of thinking, I found a lot of good answers there. So the principle is suggested as this, that the mind, its function is to desire and want and will, right? That's the function of the mind. What's often missed out in any of these schools of thought is the position of the intelligence. So the mind is compared to a child and the intelligence is compared to an adult. And so we are not the mind. Definitely, that's for sure. We are not the mind. We are consciousness beyond the mind. But there is an interaction with every thought between the mind and the intelligence. So for example, I'll paint a picture because it's easier. Let's say you've decided that you want to go on a diet, right? Let's say you've decided you want to go on a diet, you want to eat healthy stuff. The mind sees a chocolate fudge cake. I'm picking that because I love chocolate fudge cakes. So the mind sees a chocolate fudge cake and the mind goes, I want that right now. I need to have that. Like I need that chocolate fudge cake. And you think the chocolate fudge cake's looking at you saying, eat me, right? Like you think that. And so the mind's having this whole conversation. The mind thinks back to every time it's had chocolate fudge cake and how happy it feels when it has that. And you think, yeah, I need to have this fudge cake. I need it. Then it's the role of the intelligence based on how much you've strengthened your intelligence. Your intelligence will say to the mind, no, we want to eat healthy. We want to be healthy. We're going to save that for cheat day. But if your intelligence is weak, your intelligence just falls over and goes, okay, let's just have And so that's actually the interaction that's happening daily in our minds. When we wake up in the morning, your mind says, I want to go to sleep. Your intelligence says, I want to wake up. Depending on how much, whichever one you've been feeding, whichever one you've been strengthening, that's the one that wins inside of you every single day. So that's one other school of thought to add to your school of thought.
How would you, one part of me goes, well, is intelligence just another part of the mind?
Yeah, it's the more mature adult functioning part.
But even that is not really us.
It's not. It's our ability to be able to use it to steer our life in a certain way. So the analogy that's given is of a driver in a car. Like when you have a car accident, sometimes we're like, oh, that car hit me. The car didn't hit you, it hit the car. So the car's like the body. Right. The intelligence is like the engine and the system that you're using. The steering wheel is like the intelligence. And then you, the driver, are the consciousness. So each part of it is separate, but you're using a different element of it to control the other part.
And how do you think of personality in this?
Yeah, personality is a mix of the mind and intelligence.
But do you think like who we are at our deepest level is our personality part of that? Is like the personality part of the car is what I'm asking.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think so too.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think that, and I don't know, but I think that when I die, obviously my body will expire, but I think my personality will expire.
Correct, yeah.
But some essence of me will keep going.
I'm with you.
But I remember saying to someone, I was like, man, I'll feel pretty bummed like if when I die, I'm still my personality. Like, I don't want to be Mike Posner anymore. Like, with the same neuroses and the same, like, I want to leave.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
No, for sure, man. I get you. We went straight in.
All the way.
We went all the way. I love it.
I'll let you ask a question now.
No. If you're still listening, I hope you're not scared. No, I'm joking. It's great. Awesome. So, yeah, anyway, I love this. This is great. We have to have this conversation offline too. So it's awesome. I love it. And we should do this again.
Me too.
But I really wanted to talk about your new album. I genuinely did. I listened to it the other day.
Thank you for listening.
And I have so many questions based on it.
Hit me.
And they're great because they are all about life, death, and the world that we live in, which I love. Like that's my fascination and fixation too, is figuring out our existence. And I feel like so many of your lyrics that I've picked out that I want to share with the audience listening and watching today, I want to share. So I'm going to pick out a few things here. So here, I want to dive straight in. I picked out a few lyrics and I want to dissect them with you. So one of your lyrics says, my heroes all die young, they hung themselves with fame, right? I want to know who are some of your heroes and how did they hang themselves with fame? What does that mean?
This is like, my heroes have kind of changed, you know, as I've gotten older. But the heroes I'm talking about then, you know, it's like growing up, like the Kurt Cobain, Tupac Shakur, you know, not really Jay Dilla, but he died young as well. Not necessarily from being famous, but, you know, these kind of guys, you know, that they're just incredible. They seem to burn really brightly for a short period of time. They don't fade out. They explode. You know? Those are the kind of guys I was referring to. But as I've gotten older, I've thought, why am I idolizing them? I should probably idolize, even if, even if they're like myths or it's not real, it's like, I thought it'd probably be better to idolize like Jesus or like the Buddha, right? Even if their like stories are fake or myths or not entirely factual, like there's no like flaws there. Like that's a good better North Star, you know what I mean? Than like, but there is something just really, really intriguing about this kind of like, you know, genius talent that self-destructs at times, you know.
When did you first start learning about like Jesus and Buddha, and when did they start becoming your role models and why, or your heroes?
Later in my life, I mean, the last like 4 or 5 years. Yeah.
Why was that? Why did that shift happen?
I actually I met this teacher named Ram Dass. You know Ram Dass. I had a friend whose mom was sick, and she was friends with Ram Dass. And they were gonna go visit him in Hawaii, but she died. My friend's mom died. And he called me and said, hey, look, I still want to go on this trip. I want you to come with me though. So I said, okay, I'm gonna come. And I went, and we went to Ram Dass's house, and you know, he's had like a stroke, so he has like a motorized chair. He came in the room, and I had read some of his stuff and listened to some of his lectures, and he said a bunch of words I'd heard him say already, you know, like because I knew his stuff, and he said one thing that stuck out. He said, you know, he said all day long you're categorizing. You say, I love this and I hate this. You're doing that all day. He goes, it's much easier if you just love everything. Then you don't have to categorize anymore. It's just easier. It takes less energy. And he sort of just like, he held this space. It was less about what he's saying and more about like he would look at us, these big eyes. And it felt like we could have been serial killers or whatever. He just would have loved us this way. And I remember we walked out of his house, and this was one of those high moments, and maybe one of the first ones I had where I was like, I almost like keeled over and start crying. I was just like looking around. I felt like I was in a new world, and I felt like I was in love with all the stuff, like the rusty gate and the dirt on the ground. I just loved it all. And it ended, you know, I felt like that the rest of the night, and it ended. And I didn't feel like, you know, oh, I should pray to Ram Dass now. No, I felt like, oh, this is a guy who's been doing the work for however many years he's been doing the work. And I thought, I want to be that for other people. This would be a good way to spend my life, as if I could hold that kind of space. So it was one of these moments where I thought, oh, that is possible, you know, to be in a space like that, a mindset like that people can feel, like you could feel it, you know. And so after that, I started listening to more of his lectures, and I think he made a point like this in one of his lectures, which was, you know, if you read someone else's, like if you read my book on spirituality, you're going to get all of the reasons that I am not enlightened. Does that make sense? But if you read something from an enlightened being, like the Gita or something like this, you just get that, you know. So which I read everything, you know, yeah, but this is what he said, and it kind of makes sense to me, you know.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. Yeah, I remember that moment when I was 18 and I met the first monk I ever met. I had a very similar experience where my role model switched. It was the first time where I'd always looked up to celebrities and entrepreneurs and CEOs and influencers of any kind at that time when I was 18 years old. And then when I met a monk, that really shifted my journey and shifted how I was aspiring to be and to do. Because similarly to what you said, it kind of opened me up to a whole alternative path that I didn't know existed. So yeah, I can identify with that. And then the end of that lyric, you say they hung themselves with fame. Tell me how you came to write that.
This fame thing is funny. I'm sure you deal with it too. Maybe better than me, but it's just so easy to get addicted to it. You know? I mean, still, like, to this day, you know, I went to the monastery, grew my beard, whatever, but I like when people like me, you know? And you could just totally self-destruct. It's like a real addiction, you know? It's like people would do anything, especially when you get a taste of it, you do anything to get more of it, you know, and can kill yourself this way. Yeah. People do, you know? Yeah. You know, the cause might be a overdose, something like this, but it's that, you know? It's, you know, like my friend Avicii died this year, you know? This kind of thing. It's a weird vortex, the fame thing to be in. You know, and I'm not like really famous. I have like some friends that are like super like I walked in here, you know, like if someone recognized me, it's like one person. I can like talk to them for a second and like go on with my day, you know. I have friends, you know, they can't go in public. They get like mobbed. It's not like that for me, which I like. It's just you get into a weird, I feel it on tour. On tour, because each night I'm playing the show, people are there
just for you.
For me, you know. So in that building, I'm like super famous, you know. And then when I go back on the tour bus, everyone that I'm living with works for me, which is it's just weird. It's not real life. And then I get used to it, and I'll go out of that vortex and expect everyone to like be waiting on me and this kind of thing. And it's like, whoa, no, that's not reality, you know?
Yeah, I want to dive into that thought that you were saying about liking being liked.
Yeah.
Like we all like being liked.
Yeah.
Is that a bad thing? Is it a good thing? And this whole process you're talking about of fame, how have you worked through it? How have you seen your friends work through it successfully? Like, what have you found? What have you learned? I know there's no perfect antidote.
Sure. The first thing that pops up I think is probably a survival thing, right? You know, if you're liked by the people around you, less likely to be killed by them, you know? Like,
yeah.
It makes sense that we like being liked. If it indeed is a universal thing, which I think it pretty much is. And I'll tell you the wrong way that I've tried dealing with it, and I see other people doing this all the time, from afar and from close, which is I will try to prove my autonomy by doing the opposite of what I know you like. So there was a point in my career like 2-3 years ago where I thought, everyone knows me this one way, I'm gonna do the opposite. So I feel like I'm still my own guy. I'm making my own decisions. I'm not pandering to other people. So I remember I stopped. I was eating every other day, and I lost 30 pounds. And I was already a healthy weight when I started, so I was really skinny. And I dyed my hair green. I had a green mullet. And I was doing photo shoots where I was wearing like makeup and women's clothes. And there's nothing wrong with that. They actually look pretty cool. But it wasn't, the reason was messed up that I was doing it. Not the actual thing. Some of the photos are very beautiful and this kind of thing. And the reason was I was doing the opposite to prove to myself, hey, I'm not attached to your opinion. But if you really think about it, I'm still very much attached to your opinion. Your opinion is still dictating what I'm doing, even though it's the opposite of it. Instead of just being me. So I don't know if I explained that very well, but
explained it really well.
I see that all the time with musicians, artists, and just people in general, where they'll be going one way, and they feel themselves becoming attached to other people's approval, and so they flip 180 to prove to themselves that they're unattached. But this is actually still just another form of attachment.
Yeah. The Gita says attachment and aversion are two sides of the same coin. So that's totally right. When you're trying to be averse, you're trying to be opposite all of a sudden. Right. But it's still an attachment.
Correct.
Yeah.
The Gita says it in one line.
You explained it beautifully. Perfect. No, but you explained it beautifully.
Thank you.
In, it's a great point. I never even thought of it like that. I never realized that that's how a lot of people try and deal with it. That's an interesting observation. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I think I'm still figuring it out. One way I think that really helps is just the way I spend my time in a day. Make sure I'm not, take time to meditate each day, exercise just like with a couple of friends, play basketball, we go to the gym, and then you just get this time away where you're not even thinking about any of these things, and you can kind of revisit them with a little more perspective.
Yeah.
And the other thing is I take like tons of time off between albums.
2 years.
Yeah, where I'm writing, but I'm also like experimenting, exploring. I'm going to the monastery, or like I did like a Vipassana retreat this summer, and just playing around with different modes of consciousness and trying to tap into these different things, reading different books, and hopefully give a little more perspective. I know that's not a super sexy answer, but I don't know if there is
Bro,
one.
that was a great answer.
Yeah, I don't know if there is
I just
one
love
for
your it's not for me. I'm not looking for when I'm doing these podcasts, and for everyone listening, I'm not looking for the right answer or a perfect answer or a sexy answer. I'm looking for original, unique answers, like observing answers, and your observations are valuable to me. Your observations of your fame, the fame of others, is interesting to me. And I think it's interesting to everyone listening, because that's how we start learning about how different observations can help us, as opposed to you saying, here's my 3-step formula for how to deal with fame, which, some people have that, that's cool, but I get more fascinated by observations.
Yeah.
So I love it. It was sexy to me.
Thank you.
It's sexy to me. I'm going to move on to the next song that I put out a lyric on, because I think there's just so many, and I have to say that the music on this album is you being the same. Like when I listened to it, it made me want to focus and be curious and be an explorer of the music. It wasn't just enjoyable. I had to be more curious as a listener. And I enjoyed that process because it required more from me. And that's powerful. That's powerful. Thank when you feel like intrigued to listen more. So when I was doing that, I picked out this line, another lyric. I worked the last 10 years. I'm a multimillionaire, and it's supposed to all be good. And it's not all good, right?
I think you took out an expletive.
I think I did. I haven't sworn since I was 16 years old. It's hard.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That was beautiful, man. Yeah. For a while, I had a rubber band on my wrist, and it worked. Every time I'd curse, I'd snap myself, and then I started cursing.
Sorry, I took it off. I took it out.
No, it's great. It's great.
But here you say that. So the question I have here is, where do you think that picture of success comes from? Because you're saying that you've achieved everything that the world would have deemed. Like if you were 10 years old and someone told you you'd have all of this now that you're 30, right? You'd think that would, yeah, exactly, right? We both would have thought
done.
That. Yeah, you're done. But it's not. So and I really want to talk about that. Where do we think that ideas come from? Like where was that put into our psychology?
I don't know. Because I remember my parents saying things like money doesn't buy you happiness, which is a cliche for a reason. Sure. That most cliches are cliche because they're probably in some way true. And I remember hearing people tell me this, and I'm thinking, nodding my head, but in my head going, you just didn't make enough.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make more than you. I'm gonna take it to another level. And it's just a never-ending chase, you know. And actually, when you achieve your goals, can be in some ways more depressing than not achieving them, because you can achieve them and realize, hey, I thought this was actually going to solve like all the problems in my life. I thought my insecurities would disappear. And in my case, like, you know, I got a record deal. I had like the sports car and the house in the Hollywood Hills and the whole thing. Yeah, the whole thing, you know. And so I'm sitting there and I realized that my experience of life moment to moment is the same. I have all the same insecurities. I'm not like a different person. I'm not any happier. I'm not actually, I don't think, sadder either. But it's the same. Mm-hmm. And it's the disillusionment that came with thinking there was this magic bullet, finding the magic bullet, and then it not working. And going, oh shoot, now what? And that, I think, is what the next chapters of my life has been about, is the now what, you know? And there seem to be some promising leads on this path, you know? Like we were talking about earlier. But yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I've loved missions more than goals for so long.
Explain the difference to you.
Yeah, so the difference to me is goals are temporary milestones. A mission is a lifelong project. A mission is eternal. A goal is temporary. So a goal is, I want to be a multimillionaire. Reached. Next goal, I want to be a billionaire. Reached. Now we have trillionaires, right? Jeff Bezos is going to be the first trillionaire. So trillionaire, right? Whatever it is, like that's a goal. It's temporary. It moves. It's ephemeral. Whereas a mission is something you're committed to on a day-to-day. A goal is something you experience every so often as a milestone. A mission is something that you can experience every single day because it's a path, it's a lifestyle, it's a cause you're committed to, something that you feel responsible for, something that you feel like you're trying to drive a change or a cultural shift, which takes longer.
What's an example of a mission?
So I guess, even if let's take Martin Luther King, right? So his mission of wanting everyone to be treated by the content of the character and not the color of their skin. Like that's a mission. Like you don't just solve that overnight. Like that's something that he wanted to implant into humanity, and that can go beyond color. That can go beyond gender. It needs to that kind of thought process of loving and trusting and being compassionate and empathetic to all people is something that goes way beyond, do we have independence or do we have a goal or did we get the right policy in place, which is so temporary and doesn't necessarily push a shift. Even for myself, like my mission that I've always stated very clearly is making wisdom go viral. It's like, how do I make wisdom that has been very hidden away or has only been accessible to people who have gone to monasteries, etc.? How do I make that really accessible to everyone in the world? That's a mission. I've got to do that every day. There's no goal. There's no like, I'm never going to have a button that says, oh, 8 billion people now have wisdom. Like, you know, it's not a number.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's how I see the difference. But I love what you're saying, and I agree with you that's why I think shifting to a mission versus a goal life still keeps you motivated, still keeps you meaningful, and it moves away from numbers to emotions. You know. But anyway, that's just my thoughts.
Yeah. Good thoughts, man.
Some of my thoughts.
Those are good thoughts.
Some of my thoughts. You asked the question in one of the songs, do you ever get tired being perfect? Right? And my big question around this is, what is perfection? Does it exist? And how do you define perfect? Like, how do you see perfection, the meaning of perfection having changed in the world that we live in today?
I think what I was...
what were you hinting at?
I think, and I don't always know what I'm hinting at.
Sure.
It's kind of like sometimes the thing pops in the head and I just put it down.
Yeah.
And almost like it's not me, you know?
Oh, really? That's how sometimes the songs come out.
it doesn't feel like I'm possessed or anything, but it's like, look, you know, you have an inspired thought or a good thought. Do you really get credit for that? Because it's not like you designed the thought. That's the whole point of inspiration, is like it came
to you.
It came. And so, you know, when I write a song, it's like, I don't know if I really get credit for that. It just popped in my head and I basically repeated what I heard, you know.
Wow.
If I write a crappy song, same thing. I don't get blamed for it, you know. But yeah, so that's like, but so yeah, it's not always cerebral. But when I hear that back, or you know, what I think is people that are trying to have the veil of perfection, which I've been one of those people, and I am at times still.
All of us.
You know, yeah. It's. Do you ever get tired of doing that? Do you ever get tired of like trying to convince everyone that you have it all figured out? You know, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
I think.
And I think we do get tired.
It's exhausting. I had a friend, actually, we have a friend in common, NQ.
Oh, yeah.
We were talking to him because him and I do this, where we go out in social situations, and there's a little bit of a persona I'll take on. You know, even if I'm just at a party or something, or I'm doing something. I'm like trying to be, and it's very close to me, but it's not quite me. And it's not always detectable, even to me at the time. But the difference is, it's exhausting. And I'll leave a social interaction like,
yeah.
Whereas I believe if you're being authentic and you're there, like in the Ram Dass interaction, like that was rejuvenating as opposed to exhausting.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
You ever felt that exhaustion?
100%.
Yeah.
Like, I compare it to method acting. It's like being a method actor, where you're so engrossed in a role that you're trying to play that you forget who you are, and you're just playing that role the whole time. You're basically acting.
Yeah.
Just actors. Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I've done that before tons. And it's been the same for me. I think that's a great way you've put it. It's exhausting. That's number one. And the second thing is, you start playing it so well that you forget who you are.
Right.
So you think it's your reality.
Right. And this, I think, is compounded going back by fame. Because with fame, look, I think that's a pretty universal thing, right? What we just talked about. It gets compounded by fame because not only are you doing an act that you think is you, other people now have an expectation of an act, and you don't want to disappoint them. So this pressure is exacerbated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're spot on. It's compounded by the fact that all these people are expecting you to show up as that person.
Correct.
And now you have to show up as that person, even if you don't feel like that person today.
Correct.
Yeah, it's like having to put on a Halloween suit every day.
Yeah.
As in like having to put on a costume.
It's so funny. Like I go through so many ebbs and flows every day. And I don't know if this is like normal other people, but like, look, every afternoon I get kind of depressed. Every single one. Like I feel it already. Like I'll get a little tired, you know, it's like, you know, it's like in the mornings, like when I first wake up, I'm like kind of sluggish. Then I'll like meditate, I'll exercise, and then I'm up, you know, and I feel like kind of high in the morning. And it's like this all the time. And there's all these colors and emotions and shades of colors of how I feel each day. And then I'll have like one song of the thousands of songs I write that becomes super famous. That's a glimpse, you know, just like a snapshot of one of those moments. And then there's the expectation that that's you. You know, it's like 11, 13, 3 years ago on a Tuesday, that's you. It's like, no, that's me at 11, 13, 3 years ago. That's who I was right then.
Wow.
But this is me, you know.
Yeah. I love that. I think it's great. And I think you just repeating that and saying that is putting that message more out into the world for everyone else who's listening to actually get that message too. That let's not be defined by just that one glimpse of our life, whether it's good or bad even, right? Because we just let ourselves be defined.
Yeah, a human being is impossibly, it's impossibly complex and beautiful. At the same, there's this moment this summer, I was thinking about how, like, the difference between what's real and what's not. You know, like the microphone here, this is real. I would say, for just our sake of discussion, let's say this is real. Like, it exists in reality. I can touch it. It's there. And I was on retreat and I was thinking, I have this map of in my head, like what I've accomplished, what I want to accomplish. It's like a trajectory. But then I thought, that map is not real, because it doesn't exist anywhere but in my thoughts. Like, I just made it up. In the same way that is not real, who I think I am, which to me was like my facts of my personal history, my name, my occupation, my age, mixed with like memories of emotions that I have, like emotional reactions, mixed with like, honestly, archetype characters from movies or books, all that mashed up. That's like, that's who I am. It's like my personality. That's who I am in my head. And I thought, that's not real either.
No.
It literally does not exist. And other people have an idea of who I am, but it's not even the same one that I have in my head. And it's just, like, I was spending so much energy like curating this thing in my head and like making it look perfect. But A, no one else sees it. B, it's not there. It's not a real thing, you know? It's just so silly. We do that like all day long. Like, I have to do this or accomplish this or act in a certain way in order to keep this idea of myself, this picture of myself that I have looking beautiful, or add some stroke to it. But it's not there. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's true. That you reminded me of literally my favorite quote. I say this everywhere because it's such an inspiration for so much of my work. In 1902, a sociologist named Cooley said that today I'm not what I think I am. I'm not what you think I am. I am what I think you think I am.
Right.
So we live in a perception of ourselves, meaning if I think Mike thinks I'm happy, then I feel happy. And if I think Mike thinks I'm weak, then I'll feel weak. So we're basing how we feel about ourselves on how we think others feel about us. And that's that picture you're constantly trying to mold in your mind, constantly like, what does this person think? Okay, what do they think? What do I think? What do I add to this? And then we get lost trying to build this, and it wasn't even real in the first place.
Right.
It was just a perception of a perception.
You know, a funny flip on this is, or addition perhaps,
Go on.
is what I believe is going on in your head is a function of what's going on in my head. Does this make sense?
Yes.
So what I suspect you're thinking about is really just the crap I think about, because that's all I have. I've never been in anyone else's head. I've only been in my head. I know my thoughts. So I assume you're having these kind of thoughts. I use the example of weight, like, because when I stopped eating, I had this, like, I would get hung up on weight. I was always looking at people's weight all the time, obsessing over it. And I thought, oh, people think I look fat or this way. And I realized they're not thinking that's what I think they're thinking. And what I think they're thinking is based on what I think.
Yeah.
And so it's like, just to simplify it, it's like, in order to not feel judged, judge less. Because then, you know, if you're not walking around judging people, you won't assume they're judging you. That makes sense.
I love that. That's beautiful. In order to not feel judged, judge less.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's nice. That's great advice. That's great advice. That's a great flip. I like it. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Now, I want to talk about this because I think it's important for the album that we're talking about right now. Like, you lost someone really important to you last year, your father. There's, someone obviously extremely special to you. How's that affected, built, created this album? How have you been processing that?
A lot of different ways, in some ways real explicit, in other ways very ambiguous, and I'm sure in some ways I don't even see or understand yet. But look, I had an amazing father for 29 years. So the first thing is, like, when you have loss, you had to have at first had in order to even feel loss. So very just like gently and subtly, you can go from this like feeling of being cheated or something like this to just having gratitude for the thing being there in the first place. And look, I'm sure you do, and I certainly do. I have a lot of friends I grew up with in Detroit and Southfield that either never knew their dad or dad wasn't in their life the way mine was. And it almost feels like silly to me to be too sad because I had this amazing gift. And how could I complain about having something awesome for 29 years and say, hey, I should have had it 30 or I should have had it 31? Like, nah, man, you don't get to decide that. That's not for you to decide. So I deal with it in different ways. This is how I feel on this couch. There are other times where I'll be playing my guitar alone in the hotel and I'll start crying. And I miss him and I'll go, dang, he's really gone. And there are other times where I'll be meditating or I'll be performing. And I swear I can like feel him around. It feels like energy, such like a buzzword, but it feels like it's not like he's standing there in his body. It just feels like it's a weird thing to talk about. No good way to talk about it, but
it's not weird at all.
Yeah,
man.
I feel like I could feel him around. His energy. And the second part, there's another part of death, which is it's quite a beautiful reminder for you to get your life together. Because the real thing about death that people get tripped up on is it reminds you you're going to die. This can be a really good thing to get that reminder because it puts in perspective what really matters. And hey, am I doing, a lot of us have a list of things that we want to do when we're done doing what we think we have to do. And, when my dad died, I was like, I'm next. Like, I look just like that guy. When I look at a picture of him, he's 30, it's like, it's me, So the next guy, is me. And I started looking back at this list of stuff that I actually want to do and start doing it, start doing it. And obviously, my album is a lot. He's on my album, recordings of us talking. So he influenced my music this way, in a big way, this record. And so, yeah, it's just a lot. It's a lot, it's implicit and explicit ways. He's a great guy, great man, And I the older I get, the more I understand how beautiful of a man he was. When I think about, or I see friends that like have families or kids and really seeing what that actually entails. It's a lot, And I think about, when I was on the basketball team in high school, and I never played. I was really short, and I just sat on the bench. And he would be at every single game. He'd be the first parent there. I remember one time he said, Mike, I'm really sorry. He was an attorney. He said, I have a case. I can't move it. I'm going to miss the game. I remember thinking like, all good, man. I don't play anyways. I don't know if you noticed, but like, I just sit there and I remember it was an away game. This was like in Pontiac, which is, 34 minutes away. Our bus pulled up and we get off the bus. Like we're there like an hour too early to warm up. And there's one guy in the stands. It's my dad. He's like, I moved the case, I got it. He was just always there. He always showed up, Wasn't a perfect man. No one is. But yeah, I love that. I love that guy, man, forever. He was funny too, man. He was a goofball, man. Silly guy and beautiful. I just this loving,
That's beautiful, man. Thank you so much for sharing so openly. And that's, for anyone who's ever lost anyone, I'm sure something that you've said here today is going to help them too.
Yeah, and another thing, I've spoken, there's a guy I know who's become a friend. He's a hospice chaplain. So he helps people die and helps families of people. And he says the one thing you can count on grief to do is to surprise you. So often we feel something, when we have this loss. And the biggest question is like, is this right? Should I be feeling this way? And the answer is, there's no right. Grief is surprising. It's going to hit you when you're not suspecting it. Sometimes longer. People expect, oh, it's been a year.
Yeah, why am I
You're
not?
good, But it's not how it works. It's not how it works. And for me, I actually wasn't even sad when my dad died. I thought, man, I had my dad. It was beautiful. He wasn't in pain. All my family's here. We're having this beautiful funeral. We're celebrating his life. I didn't cry. I was smiling. It's not wrong, right or wrong. It's just how I felt, Later, my mom was playing, 8 months later, she's playing checking her voicemail, and she's going through she gets to one of my dad when he's alive. He was sick. I lost it. I was weeping, man. Like a baby, I started weeping. It's not right or wrong. It's just we each have our own path with grief,
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so easy that with a physical scar, you like watch it heal. You can see it. You know that you're applying something on it that's letting it heal, that's getting a scar on it, etc. You can see the wound getting covered and then it disappears. But emotionally, it's almost like, oh yeah, it's been a month. You must be better now. But it's, you can't see it. And so the only person who's experiencing it in different ways all the time is you yourself. And that healing process is totally unique, totally different for each person. And you can't put a time limit on it, or you can't put a expectation on it. But because we can't see it, we kind of just pretend like it's not there.
Yeah. We make up a schedule.
Yeah.
Hey, it's been a year. I should be over this now.
Yeah. Not based on anything.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, man. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
And your dad sounds amazing.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, and I'm so happy to hear you celebrate his incredibleness, for the time that you had. It's so beautiful to hear that, man. It's so beautiful to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And now you're at this place where you're 30 and you talk about being stuck in the middle on your album.
That's how I feel, right?
And I feel like we've talked a lot about getting to 30 and what's happened before, and the songs and the fame and the money and all of this. Like when you're saying you're stuck in the middle, how is your perspective currently on the next, I'm not even going to go too far, but on the next 12 months, the next, what is your perspective? What's changed? Where is that stuck in the middle song inspired by?
It was a funny thing is like a lot of times songs, they'll come before I actually live them. The song will come first, and then I live out the song after. Sometimes. This is how it is with Stuck in the Middle. The last verse of this song is, people love the old me. I don't know where he's gone. Too tired to be famous, too vain to be unknown. this is how I feel. Like I have a toe in both. Like, like I know becoming more famous or more successful is not really gonna change my life. But there's part of me still that like, I really want like have more hit songs and this kind of thing. It's like the grip has been loosened, but my hand's still on it. And then there's this other part of me that like doesn't care. It's like, you know, off at the monastery or and like I can't, you know what I mean? It's like it's the polar opposites. It's like pop star, like monastery. It's like, I'm like one day I'm like at the Grammys, the other day I'm like there. You know, it's like that's where like stuck in the middle.
Yeah.
But maybe my friend said to me, maybe you're not stuck. Maybe you're just in the middle.
Yeah.
That's where you're supposed to be, you know?
Yeah. I can relate to that. I love paradoxes. I myself feel like a paradox. I felt like a paradox my whole life. And I'm right in the middle too. I lived as a monk and now I do media and I feel so much. But what I do know is that in my own way, I'm refining my intentions on a daily basis, aspiring to use any platform I have for something higher than myself. Because I know myself that after having been a monk for 3 years and lived in a monastery and an ashram for 3 years, I didn't feel like I was fulfilling my purpose either because I wanted to really give what I learned. And I had this desire to share it because I can't get away with who I am as a person. I've always been driven. I've always been motivated. I've always been someone who wants to share, etc. So I can't get away from that artificially. And if I do, I'll only end up feeling useless. And then at the other end, I also know that I have to be wary that I don't get too caught up in the world because then I can lose that monk. And so for me, I couldn't agree with you more. I think being in the middle is such a beautiful place to be. It just requires a ton more work. And that's our challenge. That's how I see it. Like you're reminding me of my own challenge to myself that when you want to operate at either end, ignorance is bliss or wisdom is bliss. And then when you're trying to be in both, you're like in the middle. You're having to, you know, make sense?
Yeah.
Does that make any sense? Yeah.
Yes, it does. Ignorance is bliss when you're like full in the world, like full hedonistic.
Yeah.
Wisdom's bliss, you're full in the monastery.
Yeah.
And like having both those in your life integrated is
that's the real work.
No small task.
Yeah. We're like setting ourselves up for the hardest thing. I'm going to have to learn from you. I'm going to have to
No, bro. I'm here to learn from you. That's why I was trying to hijack your interview and ask you all the questions, man.
Not at all, man. You've given like what I'm listening to you, like this, by the way, for everyone who's listening, when you listen to this album, which I really, really recommend that you do, because when I was listening to it, I was exploring. Like if you're fascinated by what Mike's saying on the podcast right now, if you're watching this, hearing this, when you listen to the album, you'll be able to see it mirror across. It's such a profound piece of work. It's profound. Like that's the right way to put it. And yeah, if you're a fan of Mike, or I'm sure you've heard some of his stuff. But if you haven't, this is the stuff that, you know, I want you to listen to.
Thank you.
But yeah,
we spent a lot of time on. Yeah, it's weird making these albums. Like perhaps like a dying form of art. The album, because people don't as much listen to them through. But I sort of don't care because I do listen to albums through and I love albums. And so we spend like months on transitions and song order and transitions. Like a lot of my songs will connect, you know, you'll see the marker go from like track 4 to track 5, but the music there's no change, you know, there's no like break. And so, yeah, we spent like a lot of time on that. You know, it's like, I don't know if anyone's going to listen, but like, yeah, we did.
Yeah, no, I still remember the feeling of looking forward to an album coming out and like going to buy the CD and like opening up the pack. And like, I still love listening to albums because the songs that you hear on the radio are never anyone's best songs, in my opinion. Like they're a good starting point, but they're like the taster.
Right.
You know, they're like the free meal, but it's like you want the full experience. And with your process is different, right? Like you don't put a single out, put a single out, put a single out and test. You kind of build the whole thing because you don't want to be affected by it. That's what I read from your work when I was doing my research.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I don't think it's wrong to do it this way. I have friends, you know, they'll make, you know, half the album, they'll put a single out, and they'll see what people say about it, and then they'll finish the album with that information. I don't like this way. I like to do the whole thing. And I don't let anyone hear it except for my friends that are working on it. But my manager doesn't hear it. No one at the record label hears it. No one. Until I make this thing how I think is great. And then I'll play it for a few friends I trust, get feedback. I'll go from there. If the feedback hits me in that tender place where I know that it's right, I'll address it. And if I think they're wrong in my heart, I don't address it. And then I go to a record label and say, here's my album. It's done.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's done.
It's awesome, man. I've got the 5 big questions for you that I always talk about. I want to hear you play as well, but these are 5 big questions. So the first big question is, what's the best thing you've ever let go of?
Best thing I've ever let go of.
That you're happiest about letting go of? Because you've really cleansed, you've healed your work, you're doing the work. So
I would say there's been a few times where I've moved into my van, not because I had fallen on hard times, because I felt like my possessions were weighing me down. So like, I owned a house in the Hollywood Hills, and I had a Porsche sports car, and I had like more sneakers than I even knew I had. And I remember thinking, I want to just move into my van. I bought this like little conversion van, and I put this stuff, like some clothes in it that I needed in there, and my guitar, and it doesn't fit very much, and the rest I donated. So I would say all that stuff.
Well,
let go of it, man. And I just felt lighter.
Nice.
You know?
It's awesome, man. Question number 2. I saw that on your website you have a hate mail section.
Yeah.
Tell me how that all came about and how you deal with criticism.
I copied this from my friend Amanda Palmer.
Okay.
Who's an amazing artist and writer. For me, it was just a good way to like, when I was on social media, now I have someone post for me.
Right.
I'll write the post and then they do it, because I try not to read the comments. But before, I used to be on there, and I probably will have to go back to, because I like having dialogue with my listeners. But involved with that is reading some pretty negative things about yourself. And before, they used to just really hurt my feelings. But then I started amassing them, and I made this section on my website called Hate Mail, and I would repost. And suddenly the same message that seemed really mean and hurtful, it became funny.
Yeah.
They just became fun. And I'd like read them out loud with my mom, and we both just be cracking up, you know?
It reminds me of the last scene of 8 Mile when Eminem goes and shares all the bad stuff he already knows about himself.
Yeah, he said, tell these people something they don't know about me. They don't already know about me, right?
Yeah. And it's like when you've done that, it's like no one else has got anything left to say.
Exactly.
Because you've already said it.
Exactly.
I love that, man. Okay, question number 3. The best advice you've ever received. The first one that comes to mind.
Probably that Ram Dass advice.
I liked it.
Just love everything. It's way easier. It's way easier. Don't. I'm repeating it, but all day long, it's like, hey, I like this, I don't like this. I love this, I hate that. Just love everything. It's easier. It's less exhausting.
I love it. I love that too. Thanks for repeating it. Where do you feel change in the world is going to come from, individually, collectively, positive change? Where's it going to come from?
There has to be I believe, an internal shift in everyone individually. I mean, look, all of us know, like, war is bad, and we know, like, we need to do more for the environment, and we know the planet's getting warmer. But our action is not lined up with our knowledge, right? It's the same thing. It's like everyone knows how to lose weight. Everyone knows. Like everyone knows what foods are unhealthy, exercise more, but still, many people with that knowledge do not lose weight even though they want to. So people there has to be a shift in I think, like what we opened up about, that we are not our minds. We are more than our minds, and how to deal with minds that have crazy thoughts. And have thoughts that don't serve us and don't serve us as a species either. And there's to be a shift to where we actually see our species as a collective. We don't really, it's like, I see the thing about someone starving in Africa, and it's like, I understand it's bad, but people don't stop what they're doing. There's still a degree of apathy there. So, and I think this is moving in the right direction. I think we're getting there, but not yet.
That's a great answer, man. And final question: would you like to play us something?
Yeah.
Do
you have a request?
Have a special. No, your inspiration. I always go with your inspiration. I don't want to think about what I think you're thinking about playing. So I'm going to let you go with your inspiration. Your answers are inspirational. So I'm excited for this.
I just stuck in the middle.
Okay.
Perfume on my shirt puts me in the past. Too tough to be without her, but too afraid to ask. Here I am again, stuck in the middle. Here I am again, stuck in the middle. Too young to settle down, too old to be in bars. It's hard to take it easy. It's easy to be hard. Here I am again, stuck in the middle. 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 Forgive me, I am building my ship as it sails. How do I become who I want to be while still remaining myself? People love the old me. I don't know where he's gone. Too tired to be famous, too vain to be unknown. Here I am again, stuck in the middle. 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 Woo!
Wow, that's amazing, man.
Thank you.
You're creating from such a deep place, man.
Thank you, man.
I'm being serious.
Thank you.
Like, I'm excited to. It's fitting. I love that song, and it's fitting that I genuinely think that if you're able to use this incredible platform that you've already achieved, and you're able to grow it only for the sole purpose of wanting to learn more and share powerful messages with the world, you're going to have an incredible impact on people's lives, man. Like at a scale that no one else can. It's going to be insane because you're really doing the work. And I can feel it, I can see it. And I want people to experience that. And I feel like you've been given this incredible, unique talent. Not only have you got an incredible voice, not only are you such a talented artist, but you've spent time doing the work.
Thank you.
And that's going to transpire into people's lives if you just keep doing it, man. In the middle. That's just there.
In the middle.
In the middle.
Not stuck.
Yeah.
Just in the pocket.
Yeah, in the middle, man.
You want to hear another song?
Yeah, go for it. I'm loving this, man. It's beautiful. Want to hear another one, right? Yeah. Let's do it.
Somebody told me God is simply what we don't know. I saw a butterfly, it was dead but it was gorgeous. And all the robots are just walking down the sidewalk. Kings of the little empires that they made of. And I'm wide open. Yeah, I'm wide open. Woo-hoo. Dusty got shot and then Osher got married. Stewie's still dead and commitment's still scary. And I got a new woman, but I treat her like my old one. If I keep this shit up, I know I'ma be with no one. Now, wide open. Yeah, wide open. Woo-hoo. Yeah, I don't think anything matters. I don't really care at all. You wanna start a revolution, but nobody cares and everyone's tired. Work a little bit harder, and baby, so will I. You want a revolution, but nobody cares and everyone's tired. And the promenade's filled with a gray cloud. It's dripping black all over the playground. And the museum's all filled with the Snapchat. Got the head of a dog in my backpack. And underneath all my clothes is a snake skin that I stole from the temple when it caved in. Cause they built it too close to the fault line. When the Capitol burned, we were all high on the beautiful mess we'd created. There's a thought in my mind, this is sacred. In the future future, this will all be ancient. And the water in the sink has been tainted with the urine of the governor's firstborn. On his second birthday, he got a surfboard, but he crashed it ever since he's been dirt poor. So he picked up the guitar, he's trying to learn chords. And time wrote a new constitution. Jimmy wants to start a revolution, and the people want to start it all over. Cause the poets just murdered all the soldiers, and the monks have God on their shoulders, and the world's just another day older. I said time wrote a new constitution, but Jimmy wants to start a revolution. My week is wide open.
We need to. I wish there was like an audience here, man. I'm like,
next time.
Yeah, we're gonna have to. When I go do my world tour, I'm gonna be getting you to try and get you to come sing these songs, man. I'm
That'd
like,
be fun,
yeah,
bro.
because that's beautiful, man.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's always more beautiful when the person singing is seeking at the same time. So that was incredible, man. Thank you. I feel so blessed being able to watch that live.
Thank you for having
me. It's amazing.
Man.
No, I hope we're gonna continue our friendship, and
we are.
Yeah,
for sure.
And we talk for hours and hours and hours, man. Is there anything that I always ask this because it's important to me? Because, like I said to you before, that this podcast is an opportunity for me to serve you, and it's an opportunity for me to help highlight the incredible work you're doing. Is there anything that I haven't let you share, you haven't been able to share, you think we've missed? There's a message that's intuitively in your veins right now that needs to come out.
I think we did it.
Yeah?
I think we got it.
Awesome, man.
For now, Wes, obviously we could talk more.
Yeah, we're going to get together again and
I
do
got
this.
questions for you, man.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. Thank you, bro. Thank you so much, Mike. The album is out. We're not sharing a date, but if you're listening to this, the album's out right now.
Correct.
So I want you to go and get it, listen to it. I promise you, if you found this conversation exhilarating and it took you somewhere, then the album will do beyond that. So please go check it out, guys. Thank you so much. Thanks, Mike. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate you.
That was awesome.
Awesome, man.